Once me and Roberto decided to tell a story through imagery, he said, don't paint something you don't know about. Don't try to tell a story about world hunger if you don't know anything about world hunger. So I thought to myself, I have something very close to me, a story very close to me, very personal, and something I feel I can illustrate very well. That is still very fresh in my mind too. I knew exactly what I wanted to tell, you know. This collaboration of the Glass House was between myself and Roberto Loring, who was a resident at Sculpture Space in Utica, New York. And he must have heard my name that I'm a working artist out in Utica, and knew that he got into the residency program in Utica through Sculpture Space, and by chance decided to contact me and see if I would be willing to collaborate during some of his time there at his residency program. Like 6 months before his residency started, I started painting on glass windows, and that was like all I was painting on for the past 6 months. And he had said that it's kind of interesting that I paint on glass windows because he has constructed small scale houses out of window frames, old windows. Maybe that the collaboration should be among that, you know, mock style of a house with discarded glass windows, and painting some sort of imagery on there, and that's what got the ball rolling. That's where it started. That was the initial idea. So he goes to me. He's like, "What are you gonna paint?" September 3rd, 2011 was when it first happened. The first bleed. And that was the worst bleed too. I've had two altogether now. The brain hemorrhages that I had, they affected a lot of my fine motor skills. I was in the hospital for 50 something days, ICU unit, and then to rehab. My nerves had to relearn how to make those firing moments to allow me to find my equilibrium and walk again. And my eyes did not work together. I lost lateral movement in both my eyes. So you get this weird blurred frame by frame imagery. You know, you get multiple heads, or you get multiple eyes and heads and multiple lips, you know. I lost all the muscle movements in my face. My brain would say, "Hey, smile," or someone would say something funny, and you know I should have gotten that, just reaction, that natural reaction to smile, and I couldn't. You know, my muscles and my skin, it felt different, and that's part of what was affected as far as my nerves. I knew that I still existed, but at times I just couldn't feel myself. You know what I mean? Right when I woke up, or right when I was, it's actually tough to sleep that whole time, but right when I was starting to function again mentally, I would see the same, and lights would all be dark, and I would see the same silhouettes of these white coats standing in a row, talking, interacting with me the best they could, the best I could. As soon as I got brought down to the rehabilitation center is when they allowed me to pick up a pen and draw it, and I drew these very abstract white coats, just this row on this very thin piece of paper that was perfect for the size of the stance of the white coats, and that was the first image that I drew. I signed a lot of my work at that time with the words "reset," because I felt like my body had been pressed. The button of reset has been pressed. After I recovered almost to 100%, I had another rebleed a year later in February, and that bleed was much less, but for my morale it was much worse. Diagnosis was after the second bleed, and all this information that they've collected over the first bleed and in between the time to the second bleed and all that. So all that stuff, is what brought them to the conclusion that it was this thing called capitis angioma that pretty much says, you're gonna bleed. Totally changed my whole outlook on life, and it has affected my art, and has been very therapeutic to paint in response to. I'm still suffering with the realization that the diagnosis says that I will most likely bleed again in my lifetime, and it's just a random occurrence. It's something that will always be with me whether I want to or not. So now I like to add that into artwork, especially in this project being about all of what has happened. Yeah, I did a lot of heart imagery that could represent lots of things, but for me it represented courage and heart that I still felt when I was struggling through my illnesses. Some of the hearts I wrote the word hope. Still King represents a whole slew of things, especially the fact that I still wanted to be king of my body. I still felt like I was as best as I could be, and that I would be someday. Through the experience of the illness, I learned a lot about mortality, and I was at the age where I felt totally like I would never die. I was invincible, all that stuff. Nothing could touch me. So I had so I illustrated a lot to do with my own mortality, and so some of it was of human skeletal figures. Some of them did represent, death, as far as like, if things would have gone worse, and someday we all will face death. A lot of it is I'm trying to work with being okay with that. So through that time of painting these images onto the constructed glass house, I had gotten the unfortunate news that a glass window that I've been recently painting on had fallen off the wall of the gallery and smashed. And it got me thinking. I was all bummed out, and it got me thinking, like, wow, I'm painting on such a very fragile material, and this is not very archivable. And one of Roberto's ideas was he would love to have this glass house outside of sculpture space, outside in the elements, so people could see it. We could light it up at night. Passerbyers could walk, and just to have it near the landscape. And it was a great idea. And I thought to myself, like, oh, but that, so elements, rain, sun, it's all going to do something to this. Are we going to try to keep this afterwards? And so I brought to him the idea. I said, what if we destroyed it somehow? Painting it was therapeutic, but wow, to put it in a million pieces somehow, that's a whole nother level of therapy, So we finally fell upon the idea of, let's personally throw rocks through it. And then it went to, well, let's get a group of people as well to throw rocks through it. Let's involve other people in helping to not erase. At one point we thought erase these memories, but it wasn't erasing these memories. It's almost expanding upon our creation. You know what I mean? You can't keep everything forever. So let's let it be at our hands, and then let's let that be the completion, the evolution of it transforming into a million pieces. It was great to have other people be involved. Especially I had some of my friends that know what I went through, that were with me when I went through it, and also some people I've never met before. One of the highlights of it was that I did not see one person throw a stone without having a smile on their face afterwards. Especially myself. Every stone I threw hit. I just, you can't not throw rocks through glass without having a smile on your face. And so that was a hidden or an unexpected plus of this. This being something I've never dreamed of doing or never really expected a lot that came out of this to have happened the way it did. Even the way that some of the glass broke because I layered paintings behind paintings. At one time, we thought the piece was going to be done once we destroyed it. But once we saw the beauty of what was left over, we said, no, it's not. There's no way that it can be finished. We collected all the glass, and we are right now in the process of experimenting on the limits of where we can bring these broken glass shards to. How can we display them and have them hold their own, but still in an eerie way holding on to what they once were? Roberto once has had some amazing ideas on how to push this even farther with the broken glass. It could be represented as a form of rebirth. What grows from things that are destroyed or death is always something else.